Have you ever felt like money disappears the moment it enters your life? Like no matter how hard you work, how much you plan, or how motivated you become, something always seems to interrupt your progress. At first, it feels temporary. You tell yourself things will improve once you make more money, once you become more disciplined, once you finally figure things out. But then months pass, sometimes years, and the same pattern repeats itself again and again. Unexpected expenses appear. Opportunities slip away. Motivation fades. Financial stress returns. And eventually, many people start asking themselves a deeper question. What if something is blocking me? Not in a dramatic or mystical way, but psychologically, emotionally, energetically. Because when the same struggle repeats long enough, it stops feeling random. It starts feeling programmed. And in many ways, it is. Most people think money blocks are simply about limiting beliefs. But the truth is more complex than that. A money block is not usually one single belief hidden in the subconscious. It's often an entire internal pattern. A combination of emotional conditioning, nervous system responses, stress habits, fear patterns, and unconscious behaviors that quietly shape how you interact with money every day. And the reason these patterns feel so difficult to change is because most of them operate automatically. You don't consciously choose them. Your brain runs them in the background. Think about how many financial decisions happen emotionally instead of logically. Impulse purchases, avoidance, fear-based hesitation, self-sabotage, inconsistency, short-term thinking. Most people assume they are making rational choices. But neuroscience shows that emotional states heavily influence decision-making, especially under stress. And this becomes important once you realize something. Many people spend most of their lives in a constant low-level stress response. Their nervous system rarely feels safe. The brain becomes focused on survival instead of long-term growth. And survival-focused minds behave differently around money. They seek immediate relief, immediate certainty, immediate comfort. That creates unstable financial behavior. Not because people are lazy, not because they are incapable, but because their internal state is constantly pulling them toward emotional survival patterns. This is why some people earn more money yet remain financially stuck. The external income changes, but the internal programming does not. And eventually the old patterns recreate the old outcomes. The stress returns. The fear returns. The instability returns. This is one reason many people describe money problems as feeling heavy. Because financial struggle is rarely just financial. It affects identity, confidence, relationships, energy levels, focus. It slowly conditions the mind into expecting struggle. And expectation shapes perception more than most people realize. The brain constantly filters reality based on familiar emotional patterns. If stress feels familiar, the brain notices more threats. If lack feels familiar, the brain notices scarcity more easily. If struggle becomes emotionally normal, abundance can feel unfamiliar or even unsafe. This is where many traditional manifestation methods fail people. They focus entirely on surface-level positivity. Just think positively. Visualize money. Repeat affirmations. But if the nervous system remains trapped in stress, those methods rarely create lasting change. Because the subconscious mind responds more strongly to emotional conditioning than forced positive thinking. You cannot simply think your way out of deeply conditioned emotional patterns. Your nervous system must feel different first. And this is where many people begin exploring methods involving sound, meditation, breathwork, and frequency-based relaxation practices. Because these approaches target something deeper than conscious thought. They target state. Your internal state affects everything. How you think, how you react, how you focus, how consistently you take action. A dysregulated nervous system creates inconsistent behavior. and inconsistent behavior creates unstable results. This is why calming the nervous system can sometimes feel life-changing. Not because relaxation magically creates money, but because clarity changes behavior. When mental noise decreases, people often notice things they ignored before. Patterns become visible. Self-sabotage becomes visible. Fear reactions become visible. And awareness changes decisions. The problem is that modern life constantly pushes people into overstimulation. Noise, stress, notifications, comparison, pressure, information overload. The brain rarely experiences stillness anymore. And overstimulated minds struggle to create clear, intentional action consistently. Instead, they become reactive. Reactive minds focus on surviving the day. Intentional minds focus on building the future. That difference matters enormously over time. Now, one of the fastest ways to influence internal state is through repetition. The brain adapts to repeated input. This principle is called neuroplasticity. Repeated thoughts strengthen neural pathways. Repeated emotional states become familiar. Repeated behaviors become automatic. Eventually, patterns become identity. That means if someone spends years emotionally associating money with fear, pressure, shame, or instability, those emotional reactions become conditioned. Even when opportunities appear, the nervous system may still react defensively. This is why people sometimes sabotage progress unconsciously. Success feels unfamiliar. Stability feels unfamiliar. Abundance feels unfamiliar. And the brain naturally returns toward what feels emotionally known. Removing money blocks, therefore, is not just about believing differently. It's about gradually creating new emotional patterns, new associations, new states, new behavioral loops. And one of the easiest ways to begin doing this is by changing the environment influencing your nervous system daily. What you hear matters. What you consume matters. What emotional atmosphere surrounds you matters. Sound, especially, has a surprisingly strong influence on mental and emotional state. Music changes mood instantly. Rhythm changes breathing. Repetition changes focus. The nervous system responds automatically. This is why sound has been used in rituals, meditation, healing traditions, and spiritual practices for thousands of years. Ancient cultures understood something modern science is now studying more seriously. Sound influences consciousness. Certain frequencies promote relaxation. Certain rhythms calm mental activity. Certain auditory patterns may help guide the brain towards slower, calmer states. And calmer states create different behaviors. People become less reactive, less impulsive, less emotionally overwhelmed. Over time, this matters enormously, because money blocks are often reinforced emotionally, not logically. For example, someone may consciously want financial success, but unconsciously associate wealth with pressure, danger, guilt, or instability. Another person may constantly fear losing money the moment they receive it. Another may subconsciously believe struggle is necessary to deserve success. These emotional patterns shape behavior quietly, not dramatically, not obviously, but consistently, and consistency always compounds over time. Now, removing these patterns does not require perfection. It requires interruption. You must interrupt the emotional cycles reinforcing them. That's why many people find practices involving calming sound frequencies, meditation audio, breathwork, journaling, or visualization helpful. Not because these practices magically force abundance into existence, but because they gradually reduce internal resistance. They help create enough mental space for new patterns to emerge. Think of it like static noise inside the brain. Most people are so overwhelmed internally that they cannot even hear their own deeper thoughts clearly. Everything becomes survival, pressure, urgency. But when the nervous system calms, clarity returns. And clarity changes action. You begin noticing opportunities differently. thinking more strategically, reacting less emotionally, maintaining focus longer. The external world may not immediately change overnight, but your relationship with it changes. And that relationship affects outcomes more than most people realize. Because life is heavily shaped by repeated behavior, and repeated behavior is heavily shaped by emotional state. This is why emotional regulation is one of the most overlooked forms of wealth building. A calm mind makes better decisions. A focused mind stays consistent longer. A regulated nervous system tolerates uncertainty more effectively. And uncertainty is part of every financial journey. People trapped in chronic fear often abandon opportunities too early, not because the opportunity lacked potential, but because their nervous system could not tolerate discomfort long enough. This is why inner stability matters so much. Without it, external success becomes difficult to sustain. Now, does this mean sound frequencies alone will suddenly solve every financial problem? No. But can changing your internal environment change your behavior? Absolutely. And behavior creates results. Most people underestimate how much their internal state quietly shapes every part of their life. The quality of decisions, the ability to focus, the consistency of effort, the willingness to take action, the ability to stay emotionally balanced during setbacks. All of these determine long-term outcomes, and all of these are influenced by nervous system state. This is why removing money blocks is often less about forcing success, and more about reducing the internal chaos preventing consistent growth. Because once the mind becomes calmer, energy stops leaking in every direction. Focus strengthens, awareness strengthens, intentionality strengthens, and slowly, new patterns begin replacing old ones. This process is not dramatic at first. It happens quietly. Small behavioral changes, small emotional shifts, small moments of clarity. But over time, those small shifts compound into entirely different outcomes. That is how real transformation usually happens. Not through one magical breakthrough, but through repeated internal adjustments that eventually reshape behavior completely. And perhaps the easiest place to begin is not by forcing yourself harder, but by changing what repeatedly influences your mind every day. Because whatever repeatedly enters the nervous system eventually shapes it. And whatever shapes the nervous system eventually shapes behavior. And behavior, repeated long enough, becomes destiny. If this video helped you understand money blocks from a deeper perspective, subscribe to the channel. Because in the next videos we're going deeper into subconscious conditioning, emotional programming, sound frequencies, nervous system regulation, and the hidden mental patterns that quietly influence wealth, focus, confidence, and personal transformation. And if you want to explore the sound-based methods and frequency practices many people are using to calm internal resistance and create a more focused mental state, check the link in the description and the pinned comment below. It may help you understand why changing your internal environment could be one of the first real steps toward changing your financial reality.